I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Toni Doolen. I'm the Dean of the Honors College at Oregon State University. And I'd like to welcome you to our 2023 State of the College. This academic year marks the 28th year of Oregon State University having a degree granting honors college. And I'm joining all of you today from Corvallis. So I'd like to start today's presentation by taking a moment to acknowledge that Oregon State University in Corvallis, Oregon is located within the traditional homelands of the Marys River or Ampinifu Band of Kalapuya. Following the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855, Kalapuya people were forcibly removed to reservations in Western Oregon. Today, living descendants of these people are part of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians. I welcome members of the Indigenous community who are joining us for today's session, and I acknowledge the work that lies ahead by learning more about Native American culture and creating and strengthening both my own and OSU's connection with and to tribal nations. You may notice today that we're recording the presentation, and we just want to assure you all that we will remove the final video to remove any identifying information about people attending, but we did have some folks who are unable to join us today and wanted to have access to a copy of the presentation. And then for some technology purposes, I have Kevin helping me by advancing slides because my screen didn't want to share in Zoom today. So one of those things that even after 2.5 years of the Zoom world, it doesn't always work as anticipated. So I'll be giving Kevin some cues. The other thing is I have quite a few slides to go through. And for those of you that have come to this event before, you know that this is my chance to really put on my industrial engineering hat and just geek out in data and analysis. But I don't want to preclude questions or inquiries. So feel free as we move forward to enter your questions in the chat or raise hands. And then I'll rely on Kevin to help keep me honest here with the time, and then also respond to any questions that do come up. So with that, we're going to jump right in. And I've organized the presentation today to be aligned with the Honors College 2020 to 2025 strategic plan. And so what I've done to try to give you a little bit of bookmarking in our current strategic plan for the Honors College, we have 4 strategic priorities. And then within each of those strategic priorities, we have anywhere from 3 to 5 goals. And then underneath that, we have a set of metrics or key performance indicators to help us assess what progress we are or are not making towards those goals. And so what I've done is I'm highlighting the priority, and then I'll show you all the goals that are subsumed under that priority. And then I've chosen to focus on anywhere between 1 and 3 of the goals and some metrics associated with that. I started out with the full set of metrics and realized that there was no way I could get through 80 slides in 45 minutes and have that be meaningful to anybody. So I've tried to pick and choose some of the things to both highlight progress that we've made as a college, but to also highlight some of the opportunities that we have. So our first strategic priority, this idea of making a transformative honors experience accessible to all honors college students, is directly aligned with OSU's land grant mission. And it's further kind of proof of what we're doing within OSU's current strategic plan, which is really foundational on this idea of inclusive excellence. Next slide. So within this first strategic priority, we have 5 different, and this is probably one of the more complex sets of goals that we have within this particular strategic plan. So in this, we're really looking at the transformative experience, which is really dependent on creating opportunities and developing supports that really enable every student to have a unique to them honors journey. And so within strategic priority 1, we're looking at things like curriculum design and delivery, as well as structures and supports that we have in place to enable students to engage in research and scholarship across all disciplines. And then the third piece of this is the co-curricular. So outside of the classroom, but experiences that really speak to the longer term goals and the passions of each of our students. So again, we'll focus on 3 of the goals within strategic priority 1. So the first one I'm going to focus on is goal 1.2, which is increasing, so getting more students to thesis and degree completion and equalizing success among different populations of students. So one of the ways that we track this is looking at how students are making progress in getting to completing research and then documenting that research with their honors thesis. One of the most important elements in completing an honors thesis is identifying a faculty member, which we refer to as our thesis mentor, to support the student in that research. Because our students come from all disciplines at OSU, we are hugely collaborative with faculty from across the university in all the different disciplines. So one of the ways that we have a 4-stage process, we call it our thesis progression. And within that 4-stage process, we try to scaffold students from the very beginning until they reach the end. And so this first metric really speaks to how are students navigating the process to find a faculty member who's doing research or can support research in an area that they're interested in. And so this particular slide looks at our 4th and 5th year students. So these are students that are presumably really close to the point of graduation. And it highlights which of those students have a mentor, so a faculty member who they're working with. And we currently average about 50% of our 4th and 5th year students with a mentor. Well, you can understand that this is somewhat problematic because if a student is going to graduate in the next 2 to 4 terms and they don't yet have a faculty member they're working with, then it's going to be a pretty condensed timeline to get that thesis done. The other thing that you'll appreciate from this slide is that there's pretty significant differences by college. So that horizontal axis, so CLA is the College of Liberal Arts, College of Ag Sciences, College of Public Health. And so one of the things that you'll notice is that we actually have quite substantial differences across the different colleges. So these are the ways in which we're looking at the data to figure out where is it that we need to invest in some additional resources or supports. We're very excited because this is a metric where we've actually seen some good progress in, and we have some aggressive goals. So we have set a goal by the start of this next academic year of having 70% of our 4th and 5th year students. So at the start of next year, they're basically 4th or 5th year students having thesis mentors identified and moving that to 80% by 24 and 25. And so there's a lot of work happening within our advising team in terms of communication plans and really direct outreach to students who haven't yet told us that they have a mentor. And I will clarify, there are many students who have a mentor, they just haven't taken the time to complete the survey to tell us that they have a mentor. So some of it's a data issue and some of it's more around students actually haven't been able to find somebody to support their thesis work. Next slide. So the other thing that we're looking at is our 3rd year students, and we're trying to understand how many of those students have a mentor. And this is actually at some point where we'd like to be, where students identify mentors even earlier in their time. In this particular slide, we're looking just at 1st year, first-time students, as opposed to students who transfer into the Honors College after they've been at OSU or they come to the Honors College from a different university or community college. And so we're seeing that we're making some progress here. Unlike the 4th and 5th year students, we don't expect all of our 3rd year students or the vast majority, but we are working to set a goal of having 50% of our 1st year, first-time students having a mentor name logged with us, so on file by the start of their winter term of their 3rd year. And then in 2 years, we're hoping to raise that to 65%. One of the things I should share with you all is that we do know that students who have a mentor identified nearly always complete their honors degree thesis. And what that means is they nearly all graduate with their honors baccalaureate degree. So this is a really important area for us to focus on. And then the final metric I'll share with you associated with this idea of having the full honors experience available to all students is looking at honors degree completion. This is a little bit of a complicated slide, but I'm trying to show you multiple things in a single slide. And what we're doing with this slide is we've organized it by college, and then we're looking specifically at students that started the Honors College in 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, or 2017. And the reason we picked those students is they've had long enough to actually get their degree from OSU, and we have a sense of whether or not they're going to complete. And so in the first 10 years, which isn't demonstrated on this slide, so in the first 10 years that the Honors College existed, about 45% of our students completed their honors degree. And at that moment in time, our typical cohort size, so each year, we would admit about 145 students. In our second decade as an honors college, so from 2005 to 2014, our honors degree completion rate was about 50%, and the number of students we had in each cohort was about 224 students. So it was a substantial growth in the size of the college, and we actually saw some increase in honors degree completion. In the last 5 years, so this group of students, our average cohort size has been over 550 students, so we've grown a ton, and we've seen that our honors degree completion percentage is right around that 45 to 50% rate. So even though we've grown a lot and we haven't necessarily substantially increased the percentage of students who complete their honors degree thesis, we are at least holding steady. And with some of the work we're doing around identifying thesis mentors, because we know not completing the thesis is one of the big reasons for students not completing their honors degree, we think that we can make some real progress. And then what you'll see in this slide is that we have a couple colleges, my home college, the College of Engineering and College of Business, where our honors degree completion rates are definitely below other colleges. And so those are areas where we're working directly with leaders and faculty in those colleges to find ways to improve that. The other thing I will note is as I dug into this data, we have already seen, and we continue to anticipate, that students who started in 2019 and 2020, you all may remember 2019 and 2020 were challenging years because of the pandemic. We've actually seen higher withdrawal rates from the Honors College, and those were years where we were either partially or fully remote. And so we will definitely see the impact of that in honors degree completion that has nothing to do with the thesis and a lot more to do with how the students experienced OSU and the Honors College in their first couple years. Next slide. So now I'm going to move on to one of the other goals within the strategic priority 1 that looks at how are we supporting students in the Honors College. So next slide. So most of you are aware that members of the Honors College, the students, actually pay additional tuition. We refer to it as differential tuition. The tuition of the Honors College is $500 a term or $1,500 for the academic year. And we have worked really hard because it was never OSU's intention to create an honors college that was accessible only to students and families that could afford the extra tuition. And so a number of years ago, we created differential tuition scholarships as a way to support students with high financial need who might have to opt out of the Honors College because they couldn't afford that additional tuition. And the way in which we've been working on this is through both emergency grants, which we call differential tuition grants, and then ongoing differential tuition scholarships. So one of the things that we've studied very closely is, are the students with high levels of need, are they applying for differential tuition scholarships? And we've done a lot to try to get the word out about our scholarship. And you can see from those small percentages that we've made really good progress. We've increased the percentage of students with significant financial need who apply for a scholarship from 19% to 32%. And we've done this through about every communication mechanism that you can think about. But this is still a problem because basically only a third of our students with financial need are actually applying for a scholarship to cover the cost of their Honors College differential tuition. And so we're really excited to announce that this spring we will be rolling out auto awarding so that students with high levels of financial need will automatically get a differential tuition scholarship. We know that many students with high financial need oftentimes are just unaware of how to navigate different systems at the university, including scholarship systems. And I think in the next slide, we've got some data to show about what we are doing in terms of funding students who do apply either for differential tuition grants or differential tuition scholarships. Again, our differential tuition grants are intended for students who find themselves in more of an emergency situation, and there's a particular term where they're unable to apply for or unable to pay their differential tuition. You will also notice a huge uptick in the number of applicants and the number of scholarships we were able to fund since 2020. As many of you are aware, the pandemic caused financial difficulties for many students and families. And so the AY23 numbers are just partially through the year, but it looks like we're back to kind of more normal levels, if you will, of students needing emergency differential tuition grant funding. In the bottom right side of the graph, you will see that we have been and are moving towards funding 100% of all students who do apply for the differential tuition scholarships. And I just want to really, especially to this audience, there are many of you who are joining us today who have actually provided contributions to the Honors College to support our differential tuition scholarship fund. And there is no way we would be able to fund this high number of differential tuition awards without the support of folks that are in this audience. So thank you so much for that. Next slide. So now moving on to the final goal that I will cover within strategic priority 1. This goal is really focused more on courses and the co-curricular part of our programming and making sure that that's truly accessible to all students and that it really speaks to their diverse interests. And today I'm going to focus primarily on our course offerings. So next slide. So in order to earn the honors bachelor's degree, students have to complete 30 credit hours of coursework if they're a first-year student, or 15 credit hours of coursework if they transfer into the Honors College. And so what that means is we need every year to see our students taking a certain number of honors credits. And so in this slide, we just summarize the percent of students from 4 different cohort years who've completed at least 6 credits. So for a first-year student, if you did 6 credits across each of your years, you're basically going to be really close to having those 30 credit hours completed. The reason that we separate out transfer students from first-year students is, number one, the number of credits that they require for the honors degree is different. It's 15 credits instead of 30. And then so they would take generally fewer credits, but they also have fewer years that they're with us in the college. And so it is important that they're completing at the same rate. One of the things that this slide really points out is that we have some additional work to do to try to get our transfer students, those transferring who are already at OSU and join the Honors College, and those that join the Honors College from another university or community college, we have some work to get those students basically linked into honors courses quickly, and so that they can reach those same benchmark. It is our goal to increase the percentage of students who are completing at least 6 credit hours to 75%. So we have some work to do. You might ask why we wouldn't want 100%. Well, not all of our students are on a 4-year path to their honors degrees. For example, we have a lot of students in engineering who participate in the MECOP program. And so for a lot of those students, they're actually on a path that's a 6-year path to their degree, or a 5-year path. And so we'll set a goal that really allows for some room and unique student plans, but we know that we're capturing the bulk of the students. And one of the things I should clarify is, as we are establishing some of these goals, we are then proactively reaching out to students who don't meet these benchmarks with our advising team, and then having meetings so we can understand, is it okay that you haven't taken 6 credits yet this year? Or is that something that we need to work with you on a pathway? And what's getting in the way from you making progress on your curriculum? So I said at the beginning that we would share both strengths and opportunities. And so this next slide is really indicative of one of the greatest opportunities that we have. I think that most of you are aware that in addition to having Honors College students at the Corvallis campus, and we've just recently announced that we also have an honors degree pathway for students studying fully online through our eCampus program, We also offer the honors degree to OSU Cascade students. And this slide is looking at this metric of the percent of students who've completed 6 or more honors credit by campus. And so you will see that we have a huge opportunity in supporting our OSU Cascade students in also getting those 6 credits each of the year that they're part of the Honors College. So one of the things that we're super excited about is we are moving forward with hiring a half-time coordinator and advisor who will actually be located at the OSU Cascades campus to support students. One of our big challenges over there is the number of students is super small because the Cascades campus only has about 1,000 undergraduates at this point. So part of our challenge is that the small number of students we have are in lots of different majors. And so finding courses that are appropriate for honors college students across multiple majors is a tricky challenge, and one that Sue, and I think I saw Pat might be on the call, are helping us work on. But again, this is one of our opportunities. Next slide. So now I'm going to move on to our second strategic priority, which is really looking at building a community and really creating community that inspires not just students, but faculty members from all backgrounds to want to be part of the Honors College here at OSU. This one has 4 different goals associated with it, and today I'm just going to focus on 3 of those goals. The first goal that I'm going to focus on is work that we're doing to identify and mitigate barriers to students applying to the Honors College, getting admissions into the Honors College, and then actually matriculating or joining us here at OSU. I mentioned this already, but I do want to share that one of our most exciting pieces of news this year is that the Faculty Senate in the fall of 2022 approved the honors degree pathway to be accessible to students who are earning their OSU degree online. So we are now in the midst of admitting students who are fully online through our eCampus program into the Honors College, and even more excited to announce that we just recently hired Leanna Dillon, who's been a longtime advisor for the Honors College, to join us in a role of advising and providing support for our eCampus students as we bring those students on board. Now, thanks, Kevin. I'm going to jump in. And this is a very busy slide. You'll notice that that's a theme here. We have lots of busy slides because we have so much interesting information to share. This is looking at students at the point of application, and it basically compares honors applicants to OSU applicants. And we only have access to this data in the last 2 years. And so the blue bars are the folks that applied to OSU 2 years ago. And the purplish bars, at least to me, they look purple, are students that applied to OSU a year ago. And it's basically looking at the difference between students that apply to OSU and students that apply to the Honors College. And in this particular slide, we're looking at it by race and ethnicity. So any of the bars that are kind of pointing downward means that we have a lower percentage of students applying to the Honors College from these race and ethnic groups than OSU does. And you'll notice that the 2 places where we have the greatest opportunity is students who identify as Black or African American and students who identify as Hispanic. It is our goal to have differences of less than 2% across all of these areas. You'll also notice that we have higher numbers of applicants of students who identify as white and Asian students. So what we do is we look at these differences across things like college, race and ethnicity, as well as financial need. And one of the things that we've noticed is the areas where we have our greatest opportunities, in addition to Black and African American identifying and Hispanic identifying students, is we also have some opportunities at the college level. So we have fewer applicants to the Honors College and the College of Business, the College of Liberal Arts, and the College of Public Health than the general OSU applicant pool. We also look at this at the point of admission. So we look at, do we admit fewer students than OSU does in these different areas? But they basically follow what's happening at the applicant pool. So today I'm just sharing the applicant slides. And the next area I did want to point out is what happens when we look at financial need. And you'll notice that we definitely have opportunities for students that have higher levels of needs. And then there's this category that's called unknown. So when we don't know a student's need level, it's because that student and that family has decided to not complete a FAFSA, which is the federal application for financial aid, or an ORSA. So if there's a student who's unable to apply for federal aid, they can fill out an Oregon financial need process. The challenge and really the opportunity for us with students with unknown need is sometimes those are students who don't actually have needs. So the family has decided that they're not likely to get any federal aid, so there's no sense in filling out the FAFSA or the ORSA. Unfortunately, this category also encompasses students who actually don't know that they need to complete a FAFSA and may have significant levels of financial need. So these are opportunities both for not just the Honors College, but for OSU to encourage students and family to complete a FAFSA or ORSA to make sure that they get considered for all of the institutional and federal aid that's available to that students. And again, if we look at admissions levels, we look at matriculation, they tend to follow these same areas. But we are definitely seeing fewer students with high need and fewer students with unknown need that are applying to the Honors College. Next slide. And so now I'm going to shift and I'll get back to what happens with matriculation next. But in goal 2.3, what we want to make sure is that once we enroll students in the Honors College, that we should mirror what's happening in the broader OSU community. And so this slide looks at matriculate. So students who applied, were admitted, and now actually showed up at OSU and in the Honors College. And there's actually some exciting news here. So for our Black and African American students and Hispanic students, you'll see that we still have opportunity where we have fewer students in the Honors College than are represented in the OSU population. But what you'll also notice, if you go back to that original slide, is for Black and African American students, at the point of application, the percentage of students identifying as Black or African American who applied to honors was nearly 4% lower. Once we go into those that actually come here, that decline has actually gone down to 2%. Similarly, for Hispanic students, the deltas were well over 8% in the last 2 years. And at the point of looking at the students that are actually joining us, those are now less than 8%. So we are actually doing a good job for those students that we admit who identify as Black and Hispanic and convincing them to come to OSU and join the Honors College. But again, we still have work to do relative to the broader OSU population. Next slide, Kevin. And since Kevin's switching slides, I'm also trying to switch them on my screen to make sure I'm at the same place. So one of the places where we have actually this year identified a trend that actually my colleagues across honors colleges and programs across the US had identified a couple of years ago and we had not seen, is we have for the first time ever seen a marked shift based on not gender so much, but the binary sex indicator. So what we have found is this year we saw one of the largest drops ever of students who identify as male joining the Honors College. So historically, we've kind of had somewhere between a 45, 46, and 50%, 51, 52% mix. If you look at the far right of this chart, you will notice the difference between the blue and orange bar growing even more. So this was the first year that substantially fewer than 45% of our students identified as male. And again, this is a trend that's happening across not just honors colleges, but also universities. But clearly we need to carefully track this. We need to make sure that our marketing and messaging is clarifying for students who identify as male the value proposition of the Honors College. And so this is not a trend that we want to see continue in the way it's going. And like I said, this is really the first time where we've seen a big change in the class that started in the fall of 2022. Next slide. Moving on to goal 2.4, and this is really about making sure that students in the college have a good sense of what our values are and the unique opportunities that they have available for them in research and experiential learning opportunities. So, and I just saw, is there a question in the chat, Kevin, that I should address? Yeah, so when I looked at the university numbers, it's not a university phenomenon, or it wasn't as pronounced as it was in honors. So this is definitely something the Honors College needs to work on. Yeah, and for us, it's particularly interesting. As many of you know, our largest number of students are actually from the College of Engineering. The College of Engineering has the lowest representation of female identifying students. So it's a really interesting phenomenon. And again, we've been relatively stable at that 45-55 mix. And so I was really surprised this year to see that big drop. And so definitely something for us to think about. I actually think that part of it may be in messaging. And then it's something that I would like to talk to our enrollment management folks to see if maybe the trend at the university level is also happening. But from what I've seen, I don't think it's as distinctive as what we've seen here this last year in honors. And so now, sorry, I'm getting my screen. So if we look at how aware are students of the different opportunities that they have available to them in the Honors College, we do an annual survey of students that it's administered each spring, looking at awareness, and then also looking at whether or not students are satisfied with the sorts of opportunities available to them. We've seen a little bit of a decline. I will say that it is pretty clear to us that the pandemic, especially when it came to experiential learning, when it came to community events, it was a really tough couple years when we were doing everything remotely. And even though we were doing a lot of stuff synchronously, we were trying to do things asynchronously. But we have some good opportunity here to get more students to participate in experiential and community learning opportunities, but also in making them aware of those opportunities. And so today I wanted to share one of the really exciting developments that we invested in this last year. So actually 2 years ago, we had invested in a senior design team out of the College of Engineering, a group of students from computer science, helping us create basically a phone app, because a lot of our students get a lot of information and basically are used to relying on their phones to find out what's going on in the world. And so we had students identify the need for this application over 3 years ago. And then 2 years ago, we had a senior design team do a prototype for us. And then last summer, two of our first year honor students approached us about actually developing the app on our behalf. And so we hired those students over the summer. And this fall, we were very excited to actually release, and this is just some screenshots from one of our developers' phone. They released this app so that students can easily find out what's happening in the Honors College, and they can also register directly from their phone to attend various Honors College events. So what's showing is a community coffee event, and then you can see they can look at a whole set of events that are going on. And one of the most popular features is there is a free food button. And so students can actually select if they want to be notified of any upcoming events where food is part of the event. And that's actually a way to help draw people in. So I just want to do a little bit of a shout out to Adrian Baker and Oliver Elliott, who are the two students who are continuing to work with us. We have, I think, nearly 800 students that have downloaded the app. We have about 1,700 students, 1,650 in the college. So we're actually planning some activities in spring term to try to get more students to sign up. It's a free app so that they can have literally at their fingertips and on their phone. And then they're expanding the app to also include more information about study groups, resources, building hours, notifications for event reminders. And then we're also working to tailor the content in the app so it knows if you're a Cascade student or a Corvallis campus student or an eCampus student, so that you would get notification for events that are most relevant to you. Another part embedded in this is this idea of what are people's impression of the honors experience. And you guys are only, I think, the second group to see the data. We engaged with a company called Hanover Research. They do educational research, and we were able to conduct last summer and into the fall a survey of individuals who were part of the Honors College and completed their honors degree, were part of the Honors College but did not complete their honors degree, and folks that were enrolled in the honors program, which predated the Honors College. And generally what we found is that alumni have a really positive view of the Oregon State University Honors College or the honors experience if they were part of the honors program. Roughly 4/5 or 89% that they had a good or excellent academic experience being part of the Honors College and that they enjoyed that. Not surprisingly, those that actually completed their honors degree, when you compare those that started in the Honors College and completed and didn't complete, those that completed generally report higher levels of a positive impression, which says to me that the work we're doing to try to get all students to complete the honors degree is really important work. In the next slide, we basically have a slightly different cut of data where we ask our alumni basically to the extent to which the experience in the Honors College was influential. And so nearly 2/3 of respondents stated that their overall experience in the Honors College has been influential in their lives. Again, this is great information to share with prospective students and family. And then again, not surprisingly, individuals that completed the honors degree are more likely to say that the Honors College experience was either extremely or very influential in their lives. And so then in the next slide, we dug into that a little bit to try to understand, like, what was the basically what was the impact of different elements of the honors experience on these views. And it's really interesting to see. So basically the stem of the question is, to what extent have the following aspects of the Honors College experience influenced in your life since graduation? And then we're looking specifically at those that said it was very or extremely influential. And no surprise, conducting research independently under the advisement of faculty and completing that honors thesis was one of the most influential experiences that they had. So now we just need to get our first year and second year students to know that this journey to the honors thesis is something that can have a huge difference in their lives after they leave OSU. But then we looked at other things like the honors courses, the honors staff, honors scholarships, honors events, and definitely saw that all of these elements have different but significant impact on basically honors degree completers' lives after they leave OSU. And then the final data that we wanted to share from this survey is looking at, to what extent did your experiences in the OSU Honors College prepare you for things? And again, not surprisingly, written communication, analytical skills, cross-disciplinary dialogue, problem solving. These are all things that our alumni are telling us that their honors experience was either a great deal or quite a bit impactful in gaining those skills. And so we're really excited to finally have these data so that we can share them with prospective students, current students, and basically start to tell this story about this investment in your time as an honors college being something that can be really impactful, not just during your 4 years at OSU, but after you leave OSU. And now I think I'm going to transition to our third of fourth strategic priorities here. And this is about making sure our students have the resources that they need, mentorship and support to complete their honors thesis. And so it's very similar to some of the goals that we have in strategic priority 1, but it does take a slightly different look at that. And so the first one that I'm going to focus on, and Kevin, you can skip forward 2 slides. As I mentioned earlier, we have a 4-stage process where we're supporting students helping them navigate the university to get engaged in research and then complete their thesis. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the stage 1 completion. And this is one where we've actually made tremendous progress on. We, thanks to the work of Sue Rogers, who's on this call today, and a number of advisors and faculty who are here, we created a new stage 1 course to really help students understand what it meant to get started in research at the university. And we are working towards having 100% of our first-time students, as well as our transfer students, actually complete that stage 1 course before the end of their first year, so that they basically have the hows. They know what they need to do and they know next steps. And you'll see that we've broken this out for transfers as well as first-time students with the data that we have, and we're making really good progress in this. And I wouldn't be surprised if we are in the high 90s at the end of this academic year. The second stage is the point at which we want students to start to engage with faculty and really start those preliminary conversations about finding a thesis mentor. And again, once students have mentors, we know that almost without fail, they will finish their honors thesis. Our goal is to have the stage 2 process completed within the first 6 terms for first-time first-year students, so kind of by the end of their second year, and within the first 3 terms for students transferring into the Honors College. And our goal is to have about 85% of our first-year students meet that, and 75% of our transfer students. And again, one of the things that you have to recognize is everybody's not on a perfect 4-year or 2-year path for first-time first-year students, or 2-year path for second-year students. So having those sorts of goals is appropriate for the diversity of students that we have. And you can see we've made some progress in some areas, but we still have a lot of opportunity here. And one of the things I'm most excited about is we're trying to stress with students to identify mentors even by the end of stage 2. And then the final slide I have associated with this particular goal is around stage 3. So at stage 3, students actually have something called a thesis proposal on file. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that they have that proposal on file at least 3 years before they graduate, or 3 terms before they graduate. And that's really important because that means that they have 3 terms to actually conduct the research, write their thesis, which is not a small undertaking, and then defend that thesis. Some of our goals, like this one, looks kind of assumes a 4-year plan by cohort. And so this is something, again, that we won't have a goal of having 100%, but we certainly want to be above where we're at right now, where when we're looking at stage 3 completion, obviously for students that started a long time ago, what we'd like to see is in those 2021 and 2020 students that we have way more than 50 or 60% having that thesis proposal on file as they enter into that 3rd year. Next slide. Final priority, and I think we're going to be able to wrap up here in time to have a little bit of discussion and questions. So our 4th strategic priority, and this was, of all of our strategic priorities, the most kind of change from our first strategic plan, our 2015 to 2020 strategic plan. But really here we're trying to look at the impact of the Honors College on OSU outside of just the Honors College, but what impact do we have on OSU's reputation? How are we doing in terms of explaining the honors value proposition to a really broad community? And today I'm going to focus on 3 of the goals within strategic priority 4.0. So the first one is, one of the ways that we have a bigger impact is increasing the size of the Honors College. And so as you'll see in this next slide, we have grown the Honors College significantly. Like I said, we're somewhere between 1,600 and 1,700 students this year, and that's a substantial increase. The data you're looking at here comes from something called institutional research numbers, where we do a snapshot at week 4 of fall term. That's just how OSU does it. But we are now about 5.8% of the total undergraduate population at OSU. And our goal is to try to get closer to 6.5%. But this last year, we grew 7% over the fall of 2021. So we continue to make really solid progress. Like our other metrics, though, we do see some differences by college. And so the next slide kind of illustrates overall enrollments, and then it looks at percentages by college. We saw an interesting change this year for the first time ever. The College of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences actually went over the College of Engineering in terms of having the highest percentage of students. So the College of Science has been our highest percentage college for a really long time. Engineering has always been second. And so we've seen tremendous growth in students in the college as a percent of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences. It's a much smaller college, so the number of students is quite small. Where we have our biggest opportunities are in the College of Public Health and the College of Business in terms of increasing those percentages so that the Honors College enrollment really is consistent across the other colleges at OSU. The next metric, set of metrics really look at how are we doing in terms of creating engagement with OSU and the Honors College for families, alumni, community, and business leaders. And so the metric actually 2 metrics that we've looked at is the number of external partners who've been engaged with us, either by attending events like this, joining us for networking events, going into other meetings, coming and meeting with students through our Dean and Friends or alumni coffees, and then also looking at the number of individuals who are actually providing leadership and volunteering or hosting events on behalf of the Honors College. And as you can see, we've seen tremendous growth of folks who are engaging with us. And Kelly, who's also here today, Kelly and I spent a lot of time on the road telling the honor story out in communities. And I know many of you are joining us from beyond Oregon for today's event. And we just appreciate all that you've done to help us tell the honors and the broader OSU story as we're out in those communities. And I'm getting close to the end here with the final goal I wanted to talk about, and that is, what are we doing in terms of increasing awareness of the positive impact that Honors College students and faculty and alumni have on society? Well, it should be no surprise to you that one of the ways that we're getting our story out there is through our investment in social media. And in the old days, our primary mechanism for telling our story in social media was in Facebook. And thanks to some great efforts with our folks in our communications and marketing group here in the college, Kevin, Gilda, Kate, Adriana, we've really expanded our reach, and we are now in multiple platforms, and that's just a reality of today's world in terms of telling our story. And so this chart just looks at the number of followers across different platforms. The one that's still really teeny tiny is TikTok. The other thing that we've done is we've taken kind of a differentiated marketing strategy. So Facebook is focused primarily to reach parents and families, because it turns out that the age of our parents and families, Facebook is a platform that they use more than our students use. And then Instagram is really, Instagram, Twitter, and probably TikTok are really more focused on our students who are actually students. So you'll see a lot of student stories there. But the great thing about these forums is that this is really the way in which we can tell stories about all the great things our students are doing and the impact our students and alumni are having. So this is just an area that we need to continue to invest in, but I'm really excited about the progress that we've seen in the last year in expanding our reach through these different platforms. And with that, I successfully navigated all 44 slides. So we have a little bit of time if folks have questions. Also really open to comments and feedback and anything else.
So there was a question or a comment in the chat from Philip wondering if it would be easier to recruit engineering students with the 15 credit requirement than the 30 credit requirement?
Yeah, that's a great question. It actually turns out that the courses aren't the problem generally with recruiting students. We have robust offerings, as Sue can attest to, that really serve pre-engineering students very, very well. And so we offer, for example, every math course that students have to take for their engineering degrees, they can actually complete an honors section of, which a lot of students have a strong preference for taking honors sections just because of the pedagogical approach used in the honors sections. So from what we can tell, the course requirements actually are unrelated because we offer honors sections of a whole bunch of courses that engineering students need. We even offer a robust offering of 200 level required engineering courses, as well as 400 and 300 level engineering courses. We are an unusual honors college because we don't have our own faculty. We work with faculty in all of the colleges to offer, so we can actually offer not just humanities-based honors sections, but offer honors sections across the entire curriculum. So roughly 30%, and I'll let Kevin weigh in if I get any of these wrong, because we were just talking about this yesterday. Roughly 30% of our students have significant financial need. We don't have enough, we don't have large enough endowments or enough donations to address that whole 30%. So one of the things we're going to do this next year is we're basically going to take about 60% of the dollars we have and do direct awarding, and then still allow 40% of the dollars we have for students to apply. So I think that will help us get out about 50% of the 35% that have high financial need, if that makes sense. It is a little convoluted. So 35% of students with high need are applying for, 32% actually are applying for scholarships, but the percentage of students who have need is 35%. Limited funds, we would love to auto award the whole 35%, but what has become clear to us is that we can send out 100 emails, we can stick it in our app, we can put signs all over, we can put it on our reader boards, and students with need are just not applying for those scholarships. They have.
Oh yeah, you like this one, Toni.
Oh, what is the target for the college within the Believe It campaign? Great question, and I did not set that up. So the Honors College originally had a $5 million goal. This is the first campaign the Honors College has participated in. We actually met our $5 million goal in the first 5 years of the campaign. So when the Believe It campaign was launched, the public portion of it, this fall in October, we have now increased our goal to 7.5 million. So we are super proud of that. And again, shout out to a lot of you who are here in this Zoom room today, because that only happened because so many folks have stepped up to help us support Honors College students. I should also say that the bulk of our goals within the Believe It campaign are all about student scholarships. We have some goals to support curriculum development grants for faculty, but the bulk of our fundraising is in direct support of students, either through differential tuition scholarships, overall tuition scholarships, and scholarships to support students who engage in experiential learning, because experiential learning, even doing things like the thesis research, a lot of students can't take on part-time jobs when they're working on their thesis. And so we want to be able to provide scholarships so that they don't have to, again, opt out of Honors College experiences because they don't have the financial resources to support them. Oh, Kimberly, wonderful. Thank you so much. So the chat is, as a parent on Facebook, I wanted to share how much I enjoy the student highlights and telling their journey in the Honors College. Do you know if students are reading this to provide some motivation? We're not sure what students are reading, which is why we've decided that we just tell our story in as many platforms and in as many different ways as possible. We do know one of the things I'm hoping by next year we'll have better sense of open rates and other things like that. What we do know is the app is getting definitely students to come to events. We're not really using the app to tell stories. we believe from what we see in Instagram, where we have a lot of, I think of the same stories, right, Kevin, that we're
Yeah,
doing.
we would post the student spotlights also on Instagram, as well as some other more student focused content. Like our advisors will do takeovers where they kind of take students through their day and take the audience through their day, and they highlight their different activities and
Oh, the ambassadors, yeah.
Right, the ambassadors, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good question. So for any of you who are family members of current honor students, anything you can do to encourage your students to read their emails and be on these sites would be lovely. But I think it's actually, there are so many mechanisms and modes to get to students. And we also know that students oftentimes are pretty overwhelmed by all of the content coming their way. So we continue to navigate those questions. And one of the great things about being the size of college we ask our students a lot for their suggestions and input. The Honors app being the prime example of that. Started as a student suggestion, and it is now deployed through our students as employees. But hearing from the students is important. The other thing, this is my 11th year as dean, and I will say that part of what keeps me young in this job is that what students want and needs keeps changing, right? I keep saying the students are getting younger. I think they're actually the same age, and I might be getting older. But nonetheless, the student view of the world is definitely transition. And so we have to continue to have ways to get input directly from our students. And we do have our student leadership circle as one of the mechanisms that we use, as well as our Honors College Student Association, as well as student representation on our Honors College Council. So we are really deliberate in hearing and learning from students. And I think with that, we have hit the 1 o'clock hour. I want to be mindful of your time. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. And I would welcome if any of you have questions, send me a quick email, send Kevin an email, send Kelly an email. We would be happy to connect and schedule time for additional conversation. And just thank you so much for letting me geek out with all my metrics today. I appreciate it.